All right. I think we're I think we're good to go. Let me just double check here. It appears such. Yep, you bet. How's everyone doing today? Audrey Lynn, you made it.
Good morning.
How are you?
Oh, little. I'm good. I just came in from shoveling billions of snowflakes.
Yes, I did that too this morning.
It's very therapeutic. I love it.
I didn't even realize that we had actually gone through a time change last night. So I was like, why is it, how is it already, like I remember looking at the time and being like, how is it already 9:30? Oh, wait a minute.
Right? Well, and with so many Wi-Fi connected devices and whatnot, they just change it on us and we don't
Right.
realize it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I have a analog clock here, and then I have to change my car clock as well. And
Yeah.
otherwise, it would be like, oh, it's another day. I guess I'm a little
Yep.
slow.
Yep. Yep.
Mm. Excuse
Ah,
me, get
yeah.
some coffee on. I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Definitely. We're still getting everybody together. And I think because of the time change, I scheduled it for 11, but it's like StreamYard didn't know about the time change because it thought that I was starting at 10. So, and Jim, I see that you're on. No camera, and that's okay. You don't have to have your camera, but if you wanted to chat, you'll have to unmute. I see that you have your microphone muted. For those of you who are tuning in online, feel free to comment. I don't have an agenda really. I was just gonna basically go around the uh, room, and have people share what's been happening for them in their spiritual journey over the last few years. And there she comes back.
Gosh, I don't know if I like people seeing my disaster.
Oh,
Puts me in
well,
judgment.
let them make judgments. That's their stuff.
Truth. So here's part of my indoor garden.
Oh yeah. Oh, wonderful. Good. Yeah.
And I got about another equal amount of same said plants elsewhere.
Yeah.
I just couldn't leave them out and have them die, and because I am getting peppers and whatnot from some of these things. So
Yeah. Good. 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 That's awesome. And then so for lighting, what are you using for I can see there's a panel there. Is that like one of those daylight lights over on the
it's an SAD light,
Oh, okay, yep, yep, yep.
but it's the very old version. So I have to hunt down bulbs for it. Apparently,
Oh,
they've discontinued it, which is really unfortunate because what they've moved to is LED, and I'm just not a fan.
okay, yeah, yeah.
You
Well,
know, no,
today
mostly they just get the natural lighting, whatever is available.
okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's all our plants get. We don't have nearly the, elaborate garden that you have, but
Well, it becomes a thing of cost effectiveness,
right.
right? You turn on these heavily energy consuming
Mhm.
bulbs, or and then the food costs a lot more.
Yep, 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 yeah.
So very much so under the thing of live or die.
Mhm, mhm. And whatever yeah, and whatever makes it is clearly very good.
You're strong enough to survive, Audrey Lynn. It's all good.
Yeah. Mm. Well, today my intention is just to go around the room, if you will, and share with each other what it is that we've experienced spiritually over whether it's been the last few weeks or if it's been over the last few years. We've got some new people that are joining us today, and so if you wanted to share what's going on for you in the comments, or if you have questions, or if you want to provide some input as to what you've experienced or what you've learned in your journey over the last little while, please definitely feel free to comment. If you want to utilize that link, I'm in this little studio back office thing. So if you join up with that other link, I can have you come and join us, and we can have up to 10 people chatting on here and be able to share our journeys with others as well. The intention uh, of this, I don't know what you call it, series is to bring it forward to other communities as well, so that they can hear how it is that we as a community are moving forward powerfully with certainty wherever we have it, and where we can learn to be more calm wherever we may not have it. So yeah, this is and oh, Maria is actually commenting about peppers, how they're perennials, so you can grow them for years. Yes.
Oh, really?
That's in very, very. Would is that something? And Maria, that might be something that we talk about on another session. But um, i- is that something that can be done normally, or do you have to have special seeds for that? Because I know that for purposes nefarious, there are entities that have just gone ahead and GMO'd the seeds to make sure that they are not something that are regenerative, so to speak. It's something you have to keep on buying seeds for. But again, like I said, that can be another conversation. But yeah, we've got Jim, Audrey Lynn, and it must be Maria that is watching online. I know I'm going to kick things off by sharing with you a little bit of an anecdotal story. I've been noticing people, especially at this time, like we're headed into the thick of things. I'll say, as far as economically, um, there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to be happening with the dollar. There's a lot of uncertainty what's going to happen to the economy. I mean, the states just last week, I think it was, they counted down the number of days that they have left to use diesel. So they're saying that by Thanksgiving, there won't be any more diesel in the states, and this is it, the impact of that. The implications are profound, and a lot of people are very, very, um, they're very scared. But what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things. It means that groceries are not going to get delivered. It means, hey, Glenn, it means that gasoline is not going to get delivered. It means that farmers are not going to be able to farm. It means a lot of things when diesel runs out. And so, this is not something that we didn't expect. There's nothing surprising about it. There might be a lot of surprise for a lot of people, but there's not much surprising about it at all. But what's interesting to see is how much people are still clinging on to the system that is causing that problem.
Mm.
And and I'm kind of reminded of the words of Jesus. And I'm not, I wouldn't consider myself a Christian, but however, I do recognize that the writings and the teachings within Christianity very much, in many ways, align with the values that that we should have if we expect to fully express ourselves as free people. And in fact, if you take a look at the writings of Jesus or the things that Jesus said, or at least what was written in the Bible of what Jesus said, he was very much a freedom fighter. He was not someone like we think that he was. We think that he was a spiritual leader, which in many ways he was as well. But he was telling people, look, you want to be free? Here's how you do it. And he was even approached one time when he was speaking in the book of Matthew. It accounts for it, where a gentleman came up to him and said, look, I've done everything. I've done everything that I possibly can. How do I make sure that I secure my place in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus said, well, you've been taught that it should be, you keep the law, keep the commandments, do good to others, be good to the widows and the orphans. And the man said, yeah, I've done all that. That's good. And then Jesus said, okay, well, sell all your belongings and follow me. And I can only imagine what happens next. It doesn't really go into much detail, but I would imagine that the man hung his head and walked away. Because then Jesus turned to his disciples and said, it's easier to get a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom. And a lot of people think that, it means that if you're rich or if you have that attachment to your personal belongings, that you're not going to make it. But that is not what he's saying, because the etymology of the eye of the needle actually is, it's quite beautiful. At that time, there were six gates. I think it was six gates to Jerusalem, and those gates, they were very large. You could put a whole caravan through it if you wanted, but that door was not always open. That door actually had a small man door, and you had to duck to get into it. And the reason they did that is because they wanted to make sure that it was secure, that it was a way, it was a kind of an entrance that they designed to make sure that their self-defense was nice, was good. You couldn't just ride a horse through or ride a camel through. You couldn't bring your caravan through unless that big gate was open. So that little tiny man door, it was not impossible to get a camel through. But in order to get your camel through that door, you had to unload your camel of your belongings. And then you had to guide the camel through. And in fact, the camel had to crawl through on its knees to get through the door. And that door, on all six of those entrances, the door was called the eye of the needle. And so what Jesus was saying was not that, hey, you just got to get rid of everything to be free. He's saying you have to have less attachment to it. You have to be unattached to it enough that you leave it in order to get through this door, in order to pass through this realm from one being a world of slavery into one of freedom. You have to let go of the things that you have that are attached to that freedom, or to that slavery rather. And in fact, in that time, you could get your camel through, and then you would go back through the door and get your belongings and haul them in manually. So it wasn't even like you couldn't have your things, but you can't be attached to them.
What you're describing also brings up to me two instances of humility. First of all, as the man goes through the door, he has to duck. So we have
Yeah,
to make ourselves a little smaller.
that's
And
right.
then the same concept with the camel. The camel also has to make itself smaller.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It'd
Again,
be
that whole
almost like,
idea of letting go.
yeah, letting go. And it's actually quite beautiful, because this is I notice that a lot of people are very, very hesitant to get rid of their Canadian dollars, and I get it. You need it to be able to get fuel for your vehicle, which is getting more expensive. You need it for your phone bill. You need it for the internet that we're using right now. I get that it's not that I'm saying that we need to abolish the use of it, but just recognize what it comes with. And it comes with a lot of slavery. It was designed to enslave us. And I talk about that in other things. From a spiritual aspect, when we have less attachment to the world around us, we can become we gain a heightened awareness of much more life that's available. And for me, that's what I'm noticing happening, and I'm noticing it in people outside of myself, but I'm also noticing in ways where it applies to me as well. Like I've got my attachments, I've got the things that I'm even addicted to, where it's like I gotta have that, and simplistic example. There's your coffee, yeah. A simplistic example is, whenever we go to the store, we love yerba mate tea. We have it sometimes even 2 in the morning before we even have breakfast, and every time we're buying it, like lately, every time we're buying it, we're like, well, this might be the last time we're buying it. Recognizing that, that is something that we are going to have to, like, a simplistic example, but that is the process. That's the opportunity that we have to let go of the things that we think that we need. And more specifically, for myself, I recognize that I have been accustomed to earning income in a certain way, and that way is not going to exist soon. And so it's not prudent for me to go ahead and continue operating my financial affairs in the same way either. I need to let go of how I think I should be managing money. And I need to recognize that the way that it's going to be managed soon, either by force, if we uh, give ourselves to the system as it is, which is again, it's meant to corral us into the central bank of digital currencies. You can have a life of security over there. I'm sure it'll be great. You'll get your check every 2 weeks and all that stuff. But there's no security whatsoever in your freedoms on that path. And even so much as our spiritual freedoms. I Last week I was talking about how, the discovery has been made that all of our physicality, everything that we have the ability to identify with tangibility about our bodies, it only makes up about 5% of DNA. We have 95% of our code, the DNA code, that we can't pin down. We don't know where it is. We don't know what it does. But we do know everything there is to know about the physical experience that we have, and it only makes up 5% of our DNA. Isn't that something? That means that we have so much more yet to discover. And if we just stay attached to the five senses, which is all we have in a physical realm to be able to observe and make our perceptions about what we're experiencing, or just with those five senses, if that's all we're going for, we're saying that we are willing to deny ourselves a far bigger experience. And we have to let go of what we think the world is going to look like, or what we need our lives to look like in order to progress, in order to advance our consciousness. So that's what I've been learning a lot over I would say, the last 2-3 months, and really, even, um, yeah, just really having those thoughts on my heart lately. And then we had a comment here from Maria. She was asking what we mean by community. Is it a neighborhood, or is it a group of like-minded people? I would say more so a group of like-minded people, although many of us are in the geographical area of Edmonton. Yeah, that's all I had to share. Anybody else? Feel free. Jim, I see that you're back on again. You kind of left there for a second, but your microphone is muted. So if you wanted to chat, feel free to unmute your microphone. We'd love to hear from you. And Maria, if you want to share on chat, or if anybody else, I see that there are a few people watching. So if you wanted to share, feel free.
I'll share.
Please do.
Um, my my conscious journey has been a little over 10 years, and I've recently, within the last few months, recognized that I've been going through a process of deprogramming from the Christian upbringing I received.
Hmm.
Um, and it's been more of this thing of pulling my fingers away from that system, um, because it's all I've ever known.
Hmm.
And yet, the recognition of how restraining and um, how little it required me to be has been interesting.
Hmm.
Um, and I get directed towards different thoughts, and I go and investigate them, and sometimes they stick, and other times it's like, well, that was interesting, and I'm okay. Now I'm here, and now I'm there, and now I'm
Yeah.
somewhere else. Um, and it's this constant searching for what is truth, and what I understand about truth is that it never changes.
Hmm.
So this body is not true. So I seek to understand what it is that animates this body, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
and I keep on getting um, uh, opportunities for experiences to comprehend that better.
Hmm.
On the letting go thing. I've recently been invited to do some ceremony, and I think I will.
Hmm.
Um, little trepidous, and it is what it is. I've done some past life regression, and that was very interesting. Not so sure I want to do it again,
Yep.
because that's the past. I'm
Right.
more concerned
Right.
about present and future.
We are not defined by our past. We
But I
may
sure
have.
hope not.
Yeah, well, and if we are, well, then I'm hooped.
Right? Actually, on the wall in my apartment here, there's a saying. It says, "Stop looking behind you. You're not going that way."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that um, helps me with a plethora of things,
Yeah.
whether it's I did this thing, or it's what's this relationship looking like? Why
Mhm.
isn't it turning out the way that I envisioned or expect? Or it is what it is. Just
Yeah.
and why are you getting so upset about this? Well, I want to be right. I want to be validated. Well, okay, you're right. You're
Yeah.
validated, and
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up the it is what it is. I used to for years, I hated that. I hated it so much. I didn't like I felt like people were just, not taking responsibility. I felt like people were just trying to, pass off, the idea of taking action and initiative and wanting to create for themselves something of their own. Or, another thing, sometimes I would hear it whenever people would, or I would make the false accusation against people that they were um, being dismissive of what other people might be experiencing. It's like someone would, I would sometimes come forward and be like, "Ah, this is a concern that I have, and I don't like the fact that this is happening in my life." And then someone would say, "Well, you kind of get to the point where you just realize it is what it is." And it would drive me crazy. But now I'm getting it more, that it's actually it can be that I think it can be used to pass off responsibility, but I also think it can be used to help um, alleviate some of that attachment. Where it's like we have a greater certainty of who we are than what happens to us.
Well, and also the thing that the stuff that we experience happens to us. It gives us the opening to go, okay, well, this is my initial reaction, as opposed to sitting back and, this was very curious and it was kind of uncomfortable. What's going on with me? Is this something more that I want to experience? I mean,
Hmm.
those are thoughts that I have way after.
Hmm.
Um, and it still gives me that opportunity to reflect of, gosh, I'm really judging this person. What am I doing? Oh, I'm
Hmm.
judging myself. What am I judging myself
Right.
about?
Yes. Yes.
But if I
Yes.
don't have these uncomfortable situations, then I don't have the opportunity for self-reflection.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something also that I've been faced with over, especially over this last few months, um, I, on tour. Going from community to community, talking to people and sharing with them, what I've learned about freedom and what it is that we can do together as a nation to heal. I would meet up with people that I just can't bring myself to resonate with, and reminding myself it's because I'm noticing something in them that I just don't like about myself is it's freeing, because it's like, okay, it's not them I don't like. It's actually something I gotta heal, right? That changing that context, oh, it's it's a journey in itself, but it's more empowering to look at it that way. Thank you. And yeah, Jim was saying in the private chat there that he's got a mic plugged in, but he hasn't got it to get to work. So if you wanna just chat in the private chat there, definitely that's a contribution in itself. So don't feel you have to chat. Don't have to chat by voice. Anybody else? Maria, maybe. Glenn, I noticed that you're on there as well. I'm toying with the idea, possibility of having this in a physical location, and then still broadcasting it and getting other people to interact. But then what's nice is uh, when you have a physical location that you're assembling, it's a lot. I don't know. I find it nice to be able to collaborate ideas, and the synergy is just a lot better.
Yeah, agreed.
There are certainly miracles that have happened with technology, but we haven't been able to get technology to get people to connect nearly as well as we can face to
Thank
face.
God.
Yeah, thank God. They're trying though. Oh my goodness.
Uh, Probably close to 20 years ago, ages me, I came across this article in a science magazine talking about giving a virtual hug.
Yeah,
And what they had was a bodysuit of sensors, and then the other person had a bodysuit of sensors, and you could hug. And I thought, wow, because my folks lived in Florida at the
yeah,
time. Wow, that would be so fantastic. Now it's like, I'd rather travel to Florida. Thanks.
yeah, 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 exactly. Well, and what's funny to watch is just how much people are thinking that that's how we should be. That's the direction we should be going. And a part of me wonders if, it's for at risk of being flagged for misinformation. I wonder sometimes if what we've experienced over the last couple of years has been done intentionally to disconnect us from our from that from that spiritual life that we have, that spiritual self that we actually are.
What I've noticed is that even though the five senses are limiting,
Hmm.
it also gives me that opportunity to question the spiritual.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And the more we question it, the more we discover. See,
Mm.
a lot of people are like, I know for myself, I question my spirituality all the time, and it's because I have so much skepticism, and the skepticism isn't coming from a place of I don't believe it. It's how do I learn more, right? It's almost like an open-minded skepticism, where it's like I want to figure out more about this, and so I'm not going to attach myself to any specific beliefs that I have about this experience. This maybe it's a meditation that I had, or maybe a ceremony. I've done various ceremonies as well that have uh, that have helped, and then sometimes I've walked away from ceremonies where I'm like, that didn't serve me, or at least I didn't feel it in the moment. Um, you know, that's part of this whole journey, is to recognize where can we learn more. And uh, like you, I've got my reservations because of the trauma that is sometimes associated within. I don't want to say the Christian faith, but associative to the Christian faith, there are a lot of people that cause a lot of harm, and those and that harm can have almost catastrophic effect to our view of our relationship with a higher self and a source. And so yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Well, I
Maria's.
have a friend, and she's a full body trans medium, and we've been doing some sharing back and forth. And she'll ask me, "Well, have you worked with your guides or your angels or your this or
Yeah,
your that or the other thing?" And I'm very blunt in that I have no idea what it is you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. I've never had an experience that I could call that. So
Yeah, and for me to just call on Archangel Michael or any of
mhm.
these um, names doesn't make sense to me.
Mhm. Well, and at risk, when people do that, when people are saying, "Oh, well, you need to listen to your guides more," it's like, whoa, 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 hold up a second here. That sounds way too familiar to, well,
Doesn't
if
that
you're
sound
not
like
in,
I'm supposed to give up my power to something I can't
yeah,
see?
yeah, and this idea that in order for us to have closeness with God, we have to follow some rules. Right?
Mhm.
It's like, oh, wait a second here. I didn't know that there were some hoops that I had to jump through in order to have a connection with source. And
I
again, like I'm not saying that having access to guides is bad. I'm just saying that we can't make a religion out of it. Because as soon as we do, well, now we're saying that that our own experience with source is something that we have to discount because it didn't happen the way someone else said that it had to. It's yeah, it's fascinating. um Maria was asking what if I wanted to share. I think she means to share the why I chose the title of this chat, "The Journey of the Fifth Kind." I don't know. I was literally just trying to figure out what to call it, and I didn't know what to call it because um it's a spiritual journey, and so the fifth kind, it kind of alludes to the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is a movement of people that are wanting to learn about extraterrestrials. Well, I'm not in that movement, but this journey, a spiritual journey, is not like the journey that we've been accustomed to having. There's a physical journey where it's like I'm going to go for a hiking trip in the mountains. That's one type of journey. We've got a personal development journey, right? When we've got things that trigger us, maybe in our relationships, we have to go on a journey to determine, what is it that's triggering me there, and how do I learn about that trigger, and how I can have more command over that instead of it having command over me. It's another type of journey. And then this is another kind of journey that a lot of people, I believe, feel they need to have someone tell them how to do it. And we're
Mm.
moving into a world where it's not about what someone tells you what to do. We are going into a time of our, like, this period of time that we're in is going to wildly impact our consciousness. I mean, the fact that we can only attribute 5% of all of the code in our DNA to our physical experience. And the only reason we know that the other 95 is non-physical is simply because we're seeing evidence of its existence, no different than you can't see the wind, but you can see the effects of the wind. That's the only reason we know the other 95% exists, is that we see the effects of it, but we can't explain it. We can't really pinpoint what that is. The journey to discover what access other parts of ourselves we can access, and learning what the power is behind that is a journey in itself as well. And so that's why I called it that. I didn't really take too much time to think about it, and I'm not attached to it staying this name. Uh, Again, like, I like to talk, and I don't always have to. I recognize that my intention for this particular weekly session is for it to be a community event where we are all sharing what it is that we're learning. This a part of this advancement of our consciousness is to get away from, there's a teacher and then there are the learners. And we are all teachers and learners, and we're many times teaching and learning simultaneously. In fact, I'm sure everybody here can attest, there have been times where we've taught something to someone where the teaching of the thing helps us comprehend that thing even more. And so it's a different kind of journey. We're not doing this the way that most people typically do, and do these kinds of activities. So that's why.
I find it curious that you use the word skepticism when it comes to spirituality. What do you
Mhm.
mean by skepticism?
We are. It's a human condition to put meaning to things all the time, and so I think what happens, and I'm guilty of this, is when someone teaches me something about spirituality, and it may be very well profound, I don't immediately take it on as truth. I need to make sure that just because it might be true for them doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be something that advances my spiritual journey. Now, I may gain from it, and that's great, but if I just take it on as truth right away, then I could potentially be limiting the experience that I have with that knowledge.
Mhm.
And so I want to broaden the potential possibilities into more than just what someone else says, or just what someone else wrote in a book, or what someone else is saying, that step one, step two, step three. I'm going to be skeptical because that's something that worked for them. The open-mindedness allows me to look for other meanings to put to the principles that are being taught. The skepticism is it's a state. I know, like, we typically have an association with the word skepticism where it's like, um, I'm going to be negative about it, and that's certainly not what I don't really know what a better word would be. Um,
So how would you differentiate between skepticism and curiosity?
well, curiosity is like that. I there's like a state of what Tom Campbell, who I do appreciate as a spiritual teacher. Um, he calls it's like a state of open-minded skepticism,
Mm,
where you uh, honestly, it goes back to letting go of the preconceptions or the notions that we have around a specific topic. And so and again, it's not saying that when someone shares, I'm discounting what they're saying, or saying that
mm,
what they said is not valid.
mm,
That is not and that's why I say I don't really know what a better word than skepticism would be. But from a very, very fundamental perspective, I'm making sure that I'm not bringing my filters, my yeah, filters is a good word, my preconceptions about what's being said and saying that that's truth. I want to always be open to other possibilities because as I'm testing these things, and that's how we find out whether or not something is actually true, is that we take these principles and apply them in our lives. And if we see fruit come out as a result of planting those seeds, then we know that it works. For instance, I can remember when I first learned about guides, the person that was teaching me, they were adamant that there was a guide next to me right then and there, or next, like I was sitting on a couch and they were right there. I just had to ask for them to appear to me and they would appear. And I was like, I don't know how that works. And I wanted to do it because I felt that it must help because other people have said that it helps. But it never really ever did. But my skepticism wasn't there at first. It was almost like I feel like if I don't see or interact with these guides, then there must be something wrong with me.
Mm.
And so that skepticism, when I learned that, I was able to recognize, no, this isn't about whether or not I can see my guides. And it's not about whether or not I have them. It's about whether or not I'm advancing, I'm learning, I'm growing up.
Mm.
And we all have our own backgrounds. We all have our own stories that we bring with us from the experiences that we have that also need to be kind of shed off of the camel. We have to let go of the meanings that we put to things if we expect to learn the fullest meaning of things.
Yep. For me, when I hear the word skeptic, I uh, immediately define that as jaded, as
Right. Yeah.
discounting. And, and
Hmm.
and as you're talking, I can feel this definition coming forward and going, oh wow, that's really interesting. This is a word I need to look up in the dictionary, look up in the thesaurus, and
Right. Yeah.
unpack for myself.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and another word that's like that is selfish. We
Mm,
have this preconception that selfishness is bad, and that's not true. Self-centeredness, I believe, would be something that would not serve our experience if we're just self-centered. But selfishness, I mean, if you just take a look at the base root definition, it's just being concerned with one's concern, like one's own interests.
hmm.
That in itself is not bad. I mean, it's within my interest to put food in my mouth. It's within my interest to go to the bathroom when I have to. Uh, you know, and so it's not selfish for me to go pee, right? The word selfish itself has this connotation that is brought forward primarily by culture. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that a lot of people that have given us this preconceived notion that selfishness means you're some mindless brute stomping on the skulls of your enemies in order to gain elevation in your life. I think that is actually typically brought on by people who wish to um, have you be submissive.
Yes, but better to be a doormat than
Yeah.
to be a bully, right?
Oh, don't be so selfish. You know. Whereas if they
Shame,
said,
come on,
if
more shame, please.
yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. I I think that if one were to say that was rather self-centered, that's a better description of where we can cross the line from where we are being of service to self versus service to someone else.
Hmm. 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 I like that.
And curiosity doesn't have judgment. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Curiosity doesn't have judgment. The Kids are like that, right? They're the most curious creatures on the planet. They're constantly learning. I mean, you think about it, from the moment they first open their eyes, they're learning. It, it's remarkable how much curiosity they have. Something happens, and one of the some many times, especially when an environment of love is being provided for an infant, one of the first words that they learn is "wow."
Hmm,
Yeah,
hmm.
yeah. And what they do when, typically speaking, the reason why wow is something that is what they learn in an environment of love is because that curiosity is something that permeates the home. It's like, oh, what did you mean by that? Or, oh, and then so the shape of the mouth, oh, oh, ah, wow. That is something that kids see. And so they see the shape of the mouth, they see the facial expressions. That's why the masks were so terrible, is because kids couldn't see facial expressions and learn how to communicate. um, you know, they were, when they see that look, or that, they immediately start to form that with their own mouth whenever they learn something new. It's like, oh, wow. And that's why wow is one of the most commonly first, like one of the most common first words. Again, the caveat to that is if they're in a house or in an environment of love. What else?
This may seem a little odd, and I I honestly don't understand spirit
Mhm.
or spiritual journey.
Right. I don't understand it. And I think that that's probably healthier. And people who say they get it, it's like, what? Wait a second. You get the other 95% of your DNA. Could you enlighten us on this, please? That'd be
Yeah,
wonderful.
right?
We've got some learning
What's
to
your
do, and
experience
you're
with
holding
this?
up on all that stuff. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I Again, like, the open mindedness, that curiosity is required for a spiritual journey to occur. So if you don't understand it, that's good. You're way better than someone who claims to understand it. Like, if someone says, "Oh no, I've got this," like, I've met people like that. Like, they think that they're so spiritual that, you know,
What does it mean to be spiritual?
I don't even know. I don't even know. I know the results of my spirituality, which is more peace day to day, less strife. I find myself able to look at things with a um, look at things with clearer vision. That's a
So,
result of spirituality, but I don't know how do you define it? I don't know.
okay, so what are the actions of your spirituality? What does that mean? Because I seek to understand, to have a direct contact with that which made me,
Mhm.
but I'm uncertain about the journey, the path, the steps. What's it
I
look like, feel
think,
like, act like?
yeah,
I mean,
I think the spiritual journey is a a discovery that it's not outside you. Like, this idea of, this creator being outside of us, I think, is what makes it difficult to understand. The journey is recognizing that we are created in that creator's image. Like, you might as well take a facsimile of this entity called God, because he said that that's what he was doing. Like, he didn't, if you were to follow what the Bible says, but then you follow what every other spiritual teaching talks about. with the relationship that we have with our creator, it's not separate. Like, it's not like we're here and God's over there. We are one.
Mm. Mm.
We are integrated. And it's not something like our spirituality is not something that we have to look for to a source outside of ourselves.
Mm.
And we can learn about those things. Sometimes you could even learn things about your spirituality from outside sources because other people are sharing what they've learned. That's part of the beauty of the journey, right? Is that you're walking alongside other people, and they're sharing with you what they've learned. Oh man, you know what? This is an obstacle that I've learned to either avoid, or I can navigate that obstacle. Perfect. That helps. That can help. But that the source of our spirituality isn't something that is outside of us. And again, I believe that our minds are powerful enough that we can actually create what we want it to be. So if God is something that you feel is outside of you, if you are seeking that relationship with that open mindedness to be able to discover it in whatever way uh, is that is helping you in your life. I mean, if you're doing something and it's just not working, maybe we just need to shift the way that we're thinking, or let go of preconceived notions of how we think it should go, of how this journey needs to be. Oh, I don't like the fact that this rock is in the middle of my path. Ah, this isn't spiritual. Well, that's not very spiritual. We're going to have rocks in the paths. Like we have this human condition where obstacles will show up. They're going to show up, but they're not bad. They're
No.
catalysts to us learning new lessons and having a greater comprehension of just how amazing this experience we call life really is.
I find it interesting that as you were talking, I can feel this resistance to, because I mean, what you've just said is not new. I've heard it over and over
Mhm.
again, and the resistance to it's within you. It's you already have it. It's already there.
Mhm.
What is it? Where where is it? What?
Yeah.
How do I access it?
Mhm.
Um, in hand sweat, because that's definitely pushing back against everything that I was taught from a
Mhm.
very short age, of God is out there,
Right.
everything is out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And I was taught the same thing. And in fact, I was taught that um, at from the moment I was born, I was separate from God.
Mhm.
That saying, you're born in sin.
What did I
And
do?
yeah, what did I do? What happened here? You know, and it's yeah, it's common. It's a common teaching
Interesting.
that God is something that's out there, and we got to go find it, and we gotta spend our entire lives getting closer to Him. And I don't. My skepticism has gotten to the point where I actually reject that belief, because again, if our connection with Source is dependent on rules, on how it has to look, well, that's not freedom.
Mm. It's just another religion,
It's just
cloaked
yeah.
in something else.
Hmm.
Mm.
Maria's saying on commenting, she's saying that spiritual means for me that I'm endless. I'm not limited. I have no one above me. I am universe. I own my universe. I'm the only one responsible.
Mm.
We are like the responsibility lies squarely in our hands. The moment we try to pass up that responsibility, we're also passing up governance. And once you pass up governance, you've lost freedom again.
Yeah.
So I like that. We are the only one responsible. It's like there's a saying that I don't remember where I heard it the first time, but it was probably like 2015, 2016, where it said that the leader, the quality of leader that you have in your nation is a reflection of the quality of consciousness of the people.
Oh my God, we're in trouble.
I know, right? Yep. But what's good about that, like it's like, oh my goodness, we're in trouble. But see, I take a look at it as this is a good thing. It means that all we have to do is start working on our consciousness. And that's the answer. The answer is not, oh, let's vote someone else. And I mean,
I
you
vote
think
to
about
work
it.
on my consciousness.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And that's why community is so important, because that's where that work can occur, is with others. Like our life, we can say that our life is separate. That we've got our thing that we're working on, and Audrey Lynn, you got your thing, and Jim, he's working on his own thing. Hopefully, it's his microphone so we can have a conversation with him. I'm just kidding, but this idea that we're separate is what limits us. When we can connect, and within community, we can learn and teach and learn, that constant um, that constant back and forth ebb and flow of advancement. We're they and this isn't even something that's spiritual. They've tested this out numerous times. When you learn about some of the work that's been done over the last 20 years or so in education, you'll find out, you'll discover that sometimes there just aren't enough teachers in Africa, and either because the country's war torn, or because there's no location close enough to that tribe or whatever. There's no place for that tribe to go and learn. So what they've done is that they've actually taken people who are learning from one tribe, and they're sending that learner to a tribe where there's no school and no teacher, and all they're doing is that they're collaborating and saying, here's what I've learned, and they're teaching what they've learned. That's it.
Cool.
And what they're finding is that a lot of these communities where the students are teaching what they're learning with others, the collaboration is what advances their competency faster than the traditional school model.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's because it's because this idea that we are separate from each other is what limits us. And the more that we can get into a state in our communities, when we can get more into a state of, let me teach you what I've learned. And what's great about that is that you're not even saying it's true. You're simply saying, this is what I've learned, right? And that alone presents the opportunity for someone else to learn something for themselves. Probably not what you've learned, but something that will help them in some way. And together, that's how we have this advancement. That's how we have this progress. Where you're saying it's not your skepticism about God, it's about your inside knowing you are God. Yeah, there's that. And I don't know about that though, because I believe, and yes, learn about quantum physics explains a lot for sure. I believe that it is possible to make the statement that I am God, but I also recognize that I'm referring to a self that I don't know how to live. Like that is something that I have yet to learn. That self that would be called God. I'm still very much wrapped up. Probably 99.9% of my life is still very much wrapped up in my perception of what happens to me and making definitions on what happens to me to who I am. Like, oh, I'm disorganized. I'm super disorganized. In fact, now that I'm learning more and more about ADHD, I'm realizing that that's not even something that exists, but that rather it's a state of survival that your brain goes into, your mind goes into when dealing with trauma, when you have traumas that aren't processed, that they're not finished, that there's still more work to be done. Your mind goes into a state of survival, and it actually has a difficult time organizing because it's still dealing with this circle of chaos from that trauma. And it doesn't even make you a bad person. It just means that that's something you got to be aware of, you got to deal with. And so because that's how much attachment I still have in this physical experience to this physical experience, because that's how much attachment I have to this physical experience, I believe that this here, this manifestation, this vessel that is walking around Earth, I don't believe it's God. I believe that it can be an expression of God, but that expression of God is not fully realized until that higher self is allowed to live, versus who I get because I get myself, I'm in the way. I'm in the way of my higher self. The higher self, yeah, I could definitely say, I could definitely see how I can say that is God. But I don't experience myself as my higher self most of the time. I'm experiencing myself as basically a great big baby that needs to be fed and go and eliminate waste, and get around and try to figure out how to live my life here. And that's not God. God does not try to figure out how to live life. But yes, quantum physics, it does provide a lot of light into the non-physical. The metaphysical is very much a part of our experience, and we have more than enough science to indicate that there's a lot to discover there. There's so much. I mean, it's like inexplicably, people are talking about how they're seeing double digits and even triple digits, like in times and stuff like that. Like I'll get a text from Taya and she'll say it's 11:11, and sure, I look, and sure enough, it's 11:11. I remember one time, one day, it was 11:11 that I saw. I saw 12:12. I saw 2:22 and 4:44 all in the same day, and it was just like randomly looking at the time, and it's inexplicable. How is it that this is happening so much more frequently? And I go
Yeah.
and I learn about it, and I hear that it means that more abundance is coming my way.
Mm.
But that's someone's definition, right? And so I'm skeptical, but I'm open-minded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I too have been seeing a lot of the triple digits, and it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. And
Yep. And I actually take that the way that I take it. And again, this is not truth. This is just something that it resonates with me. I feel like it's good, and I'm noticing it more and more. I'm getting confirmation of this. The more that I see it, it's like more confirmation. That's the best way I can really describe how I'm experiencing it. But if you take a three-dimensional object and you have it pass through a two-dimensional plane, right? So imagine yourself in a two-dimensional plane where there's no up or down, it's just left and right and forward. Like that's just, you just got two planes of perception. A three-dimensional object, let's say a sphere, is going to go through that. And the only way that I can tell that is a three-dimensional object is even from a two-dimensional perspective. All I see is a line start to be drawn. And then as the sphere passes through my my two-dimensional perception, that line just widens. It gets wider as the sphere passes through my plane of vision.
Mhm.
And then once it goes past halfway, that sphere, once it goes past halfway through the sphere, then that line that I'm seeing gets smaller. I don't even see that it's a circle because I can't see from the top. Right? I can only see from, because I'm only existing in two dimensions. So a three-dimensional object is something I have very, very limited perspective on. Now, if I get out of the two-dimensional plane and I witness what's happening from a separate plane, I would be able to see that there's a circle, the tiny, tiny little circle. And as that sphere passes through that two-dimensional plane, that sphere gets larger, and then it gets smaller again, that little circle. Alternatively, if it's an object that is like this is a three-dimensional object, and I don't really know what he's doing here, but we'll call him Frosty. And this, he's more of a penguin. I don't know. So this three-dimensional object, if it were to pass through that two-dimensional plane, let's say it's here, if it were to pass through, there would be several touch points that would happen all simultaneously, all at the same time. And I would have to be, it would take me a lot of time to figure out that all of those items that are passing through the two-dimensional plane are related to each other, because they would all be distant. Like there would be one here, there'd be one over here, there'd be one here, there's this one way over here. That would make a funny looking line as well. But it would take a lot of awareness for me to recognize that the passing of this three-dimensional object through a two-dimensional field, that all of those items passing through were the same item. In the same way, we experience a three-dimensional existence. And I believe that the more that we can become aware of these several touch points that we experience, like the triple digits, or maybe it's just recognizing that I'm noticing synchronicities, things that happen that just don't normally happen. Taya had a very, very trying week last week. Not this last week, week before. She's been taking on some jobs as a driver for people that have purchased a vehicle. She works for the dealership to deliver that vehicle. So she goes on road trips, and it's pretty good. It's a nice little gig. But she went to BC, and she just happened to go when there were two snowstorms, one on the way there and one on the way back. And the place where she had to deliver the vehicle was Bella Coola, BC. And it is so remote that the road to get there is 100 kilometers of gravel, and it is the most dangerous road in Canada.
Oh, so
yeah. So she had to drive that in whiteout conditions. And the reason why she couldn't take a break was because if she would have stopped, she wouldn't have had enough fuel to last the night and then drive that distance. So she had to drive it. Normally speaking, it's a 7-hour drive. Well, she was in radio silence with no reception for 21 hours.
Ooh.
And it was because many parts of that journey, she had to go 20 kilometers an hour. Wow. Whiteout conditions and all the rest. So it was a very, very trying experience. But what's really interesting is that all of the bad things that happened on that trip, she got a flat tire. She had money taken out of her bank account while she was on the road, inexplicably out of nowhere. 3/4 of her money that was in her bank account that was set aside for this contract to happen, 3/4 of it vanished, disappeared to fraud. Someone just happened to fraud her account. She went through hell. But thank goodness that all of those things that happened didn't happen while she was in radio silence.
Mm.
That was something that we were able to deal with everything else, no problem. And even, when she got back and we had a day off, we just did nothing. It was, we were wondering, what in the world was that? It was supposed to be a 3-day trip and it took 5 days. What in the world happened? Why did this have to happen to us? It was just another 3-dimensional experience that entered our perception. That's all it was. But you want to know what was really cool is that after having that experience and then sharing that experience with others, someone said, that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not how that business is supposed to run. You probably should find someone else to drive for. And in fact, I know someone who does this, that. And so they gave a referral, and now she's found someone way better to work for and already has a new job with them instead of driving for the other dealership. And what's really interesting is that the one that she's working with now has been doing it for 10 years, has a lot of experience. And he said that out of all the dealerships in Edmonton, which, by the way, per capita, we have more dealerships than any other place in the world. Yeah. Out of all of the dealerships that are in Edmonton, there are 2 that he refuses to work for. And one of them is that one that she worked for to go to Bella Coola and have to face all that. And it was terrible. I'm not even going to share. It'll probably take me an hour just to share what happened to me during that time when I couldn't hear from her and all of the, I went through a lot of stress trying to figure out where's my wife. Right? Because she told me that she was just going along this road that takes 7 hours. I didn't know about the storm. I didn't know about any of those things. And now I can't talk to her for 21 hours. There was upheaval on this side of the mountains just as much as there was on her side.
Interesting.
All of it was just something else that occurred within our 3-dimensional experience that we could perceive was related to something. We just didn't know what until we realized, it's because we are getting exposed to more opportunities to help us in our transition from a monetary system that is 3-dimensional into a monetary system that's 4-dimensional.
Very cool.
And that is why we're okay with that learning experience, because we now see it not as something that was hard or bad or difficult. While it was in the moment, it was tough. I mean, she's literally driving with her face against the steering wheel, and the reason, as close to the windshield as she could. And the reason why was because she didn't want her eyes to play the trick on her mind that whiteout conditions can barely see, and what she could see if she were to look to the side was a cliff edge.
Oof.
So in order to not see that, she just put her face right up close to the steering wheel so that her eyes wouldn't look out the side windows. That's how she got through that drive.
Wow.
And we can make judgments about that, or we could look at the blessings behind it. And when you look for the blessings, and that's what it was, we had that day off and we're literally sitting on the couch and we're just like, what was that all about? Asking a question like that, what can we learn from this experience, is what allows us to learn something from that experience.
Very cool. I hate to cut this off, and I need to get going.
Oh yeah, no, we weren't supposed to even go an hour anyway, but it was wonderful to go as long as we did. So thank you everybody for coming. And
Yes.
next week we'll bring someone that you know would benefit from these kinds of conversations, because more and more as we do this as a community, we will be able to help each other out, especially when it comes time to more challenging times that are ahead.
You betcha.
All right, everybody have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, bye-bye.